Alright, testing 1, 2, 3. What's going on, fellow rogues? It's Mass Mayor here. A lot earlier than normal, with this stream, but the reason being is because I pulled another all-nighter last night, and that's the thing about insomnia. And I decided I want to kind of go ahead and get this stream out of the way, for the next reading for the book today. Basically, so that way I can go ahead and do this and then get some proper rest, before I have to go out of town at 1 p.m. Compared to me, getting some rest, and then afterwards waking up, doing this, and rushing to do it before I went out of town. This way I can kind of get some extra hours of sleep in. But anyways, yeah, we're live earlier for this. It is currently 8:06, so it's definitely an earlier stream compared to what I sometimes do. But I also was really excited to get into this chapter. I mean, that's another reason why I couldn't sleep, because this is going to be one of the more interesting ones for what I've done in the story so far. And one of the favorite ones I've worked on, considering, what you guys are going to be reading about here. What I'm going to be reading to you guys. So, with that being said, we're about to get underway, but also keep in mind, rogues, that sometime today, there should also be a Lethal Company stream coming as well. I talked to Septus about, us doing something else today, so that should definitely be happening. Definitely want to, play some more Lethal Company with him. So, yeah, that's going to be, a nice little thing, look forward for you guys, hopefully to look forward to later. It'll be after I get back from out of town and everything. But anyways, yeah, Chapter 5, Past and Present. Originally, a name for this was going to be called Blame It on the Duck, but I felt like this is going to be something a lot more appropriate. Because what's coming with the whole aforementioned Duck is going to be a short little thing that's going to possibly be a bit of a running joke later. And that's in comparison to Past and Present really fitting the whole concept of what this chapter is going to be about. But I'll let you guys kind of hear that for yourselves. And as always, of course, favorite characters and everything, I definitely appreciate, feedback from you guys on all that. If you guys want to go and check this out, my Wattpad is in the beacons on my, main page of my YouTube channel. Little, link down there for the beacons. You can find my Wattpad there if you guys want to, go back and read anything for yourself that I've already, shared with you. Or if you do want to kind of go on through, and read this other, chapters in advance. But those who actually been waiting and, let me read these to you before you go and, check anything else out, I deeply appreciate that, and thank you for that. Because, like I said, I do these things I try to use as audiobooks for those who want to check out my book and haven't really had the time to. This way I can kind of just, help you guys out while you're washing dishes or doing schoolwork or whatever. So anyways, proper synopsis, for what happened in the previous chapter. Pretty much, so in the previous chapter, we kind of found out a bit more about Kaiein and Lupe. And also how, Kaiein has this very strong sense of justice, due to a, store robbery happening where, an elderly couple got sent to the hospital, couple, children, got held at gunpoint by a group of robbers, and Kaiein and Lupe, who were almost at the school, about, being there on time for orientation. This obviously threw a big monkey wrench and everything. Kaiein turned around, went back into what was called the Dragontown area of Raven Rock Hollow, and intervened in the robbery, took down all the robbers, showed, one of his dark drives, which is called the Ghost Rider Stampede, and basically, did damage control the situation as best he could while causing a lot of damage to the robbers, while also, in ways, giving them a chance to, turn over a new leaf, once they recovered, considering the Ghost Rider Stampede took all evil intent from the robbers, let them as, gibbering messes on the ground, and after, several months of them being in that state, they wake up, with all evil intent, removed from them. So, again, kind of showing, the whole kind heart that Kaiein has, even if, some of his methods are a bit extreme. But alongside this, the big issue with, that's happening is Dusk. At the end of the previous chapter, Dusk, who, it was shown that she is, she struggles with self-harm due to her existential crisis, with being a vampire. She, is flying high above the, streets of Raven Rock Hollow, about 3,000 feet up, and after a little bout of self-harm, the sun, started, taking its, effects on her. It doesn't actually burn Dusk like it does normal vampire like Scarlet or Ren, but it's basically, she's now currently falling from the sky. Kaiein and Lupe, who just left out of a pizzeria, they, saw her falling after, some of her blood had splashed on Kaiein. And now the main issue is these two are, watching her fall. What can they do about it? So with that, this is where we're going to start off with Chapter 5, Past and Present, with, it being taken to Dusk. So here we go. Dusk vampirism made falling from such heights an easily survivable ordeal as long as she landed on her feet. Landing back first could still be fatal from such a high altitude and at terminal velocity due to cardiac trauma. Kaiein didn't know why she was up there, and he didn't care. All he knew was that she was falling from a fatal height and that something had to be done fast. Lupe, I know you just turned back into your human form again, but I need you to change one more time, Kaiein said. Why? I mean, I see no problem with it aside from just putting these fresh clothes on, but still, Lupe asked. Because you need to throw me, Kaiein said bluntly. Lupe looked up and nodded his head as a slight grin formed. He knew what Kaiein was planning, and in response with a howl, underwent a will transformation. When Lupe transformed on his own accord, it was completely different from a forced one, as it only took half a second with a flash of white light and was completely painless. As Lupe planted his feet firmly on the ground, he put out his arm to Kaiein, who grabbed his hand. Lupe shifted his weight into his legs as he spun Kaiein around and around, kicking up wind from his enhanced leg muscles. Kaiein endured the intense speed, even though it felt like it was going to cut into his flesh. Lupe then let go with a flick of his entire arm, sending him high into the air towards the girl. He watched as Kaiein got closer while Dusk continued to fall faster and faster to the ground. His throw had to be on target, and Kaiein had to make it count. Come on, Lupe said as his voice tainted with concern. Kaiein was only a few feet away. Lupe clenched his fist. Closer. Gotcha! Kaiein yelled in triumph as he grabbed hold of Dusk with both arms and hugged her close to him, pulling her out of her free fall as he went past her, now sailing to the side in a spiral of motion since he was still propelled by Lupe's toss, though now he was in the beginning of a fall of his own. The impact didn't worry him for his own safety, but the fact that it would kill her. Shit. I guess I didn't plan for this part, Kaiein said before letting out a chuckle of irony. Lupe just stood in place with his arms crossed. Kaiein may not have planned things out. He did. Splash. Look at that landing at 10, Kaiein, Lupe joked. Kaiein surfaced from underwater seconds later, coughing wildly from water getting into his throat, but still holding on to Dusk as he looked around, seeing that they had landed inside of one of Rain Rock Hollow's most popular spots, a decent-sized park with a large pond in the center. Lupe watched as Kaiein swam to shore on the other side with Dusk's motionless form before getting into his truck to go meet them. Her hair was hanging over the majority of her face, hiding any expression that could be seen, while Kaiein felt slight strain due to him not having as much strength in his normal due to out-of-sleep deprivation. He was using only his legs to swim since his arms were still wrapped around Dusk, who laid on his chest, but he had enough strength to make up for it and keep them both above water even with his sword holstered on his back and the ever-apparent exhaustion he was feeling. Times like these, personal restrictions didn't concern him. Only saving a life mattered. As Kaiein continued to swim, he became aware of multiple things. The school uniform, which told him that she was a member of Raven Rock University's student body. The deathly pale complexion of the girl's skin. Then as he moved her hair to the side to catch a full glimpse of her face for the first time, his eyes widened. So it's you. No wonder Lupe said he caught a familiar scent. Kaiein thought to himself as he noticed more things. The wet red streaks under her eyes and the smeared makeup that had come from the tears. Then Kaiein noticed the scars. The puncture scars on her neck from a vampirism, not that it hadn't been obvious prior. And the ones that it got his attention the most, on her left wrist and other places on her arms. Having so many scars himself, he could tell how recent one was given what all kind of wounds he had experienced. Namely, the fine lines of lacerations via sharp blades, claw marks, and their jagged tears, and the circular indentions from gunshots. No wound inflicted on him was ever truly fatal due to his body admitting damage usually within minutes. That didn't mean it never hurt like hell. Accelerated healing was common among many supernatural species due to both physiological and magical reasons. And for Kaiein, he was of course grateful they had saved his hide on multiple occasions. Same with Lupe. But as he continued to study Dusk's scars, he remembered the downside of fast healing. The wounds sometimes healed on the outside before it healed completely beneath the skin. Kaiein could tell that Dusk had just cut only minutes ago because though her wrist had knitted shut, the scar was bright red in color from her blood still trying to pour from it. This could be attributed to her being in no condition for it to heal the way it should for reasons both known and unknown to him. Outside looking in, he deduced it as blood loss and stress. Although vampires were undead creatures, they still had a functioning body that could of course be affected by physical and mental trauma in their own ways. But he had no way of knowing if she hadn't fed once since she was turned, other than the time she drank her own blood while unconscious. Nor that earlier in the day, she had used an ability that turned most of the essence in her body into a weapon. Her body was in disarray from the Crimson Razor Wind, using blood that she couldn't afford to lose due to not consuming any to put back into her system. She was cold as ice, and yet with her eyes closed she seemed to be resting peacefully. Hey Lupe, get a first aid kit and a blanket out of the truck, will you? Kaiein said, looking around to Lupe as he finally got to shore and hoisted Dusk up so her body was bridged across both arms. Though he had to pull his arms together more to elevate her head since at first it was hanging back limply. How limp her body was, combined with the lack of a pulse or heartbeat and her low body temperature, would have given the conclusion to those who didn't know what she was that she wasn't unconscious or asleep, but truly dead. Without a word, Lupe pulled a small white box and a black and red blanket out from behind the seat of his vehicle before rushing over to Kaiein, who had taken Dusk into a small group of trees. He thought about it and concluded that Kaiein didn't want to attract any more attention to what it may have been, especially given he was currently cradling a girl in his arms that was as white and limp as a corpse in the middle of a popular lunch spot in the city, and people were already taking notice. Upon closer inspection, Lupe noticed for himself the large red plates on Dusk's wrists. Inside the box were typical first aid supplies: band-aids, roll gauze, and antibacterial spray. but also more advanced things that were in, such as sutures and traumatic needles. Stitching tools, more or less. They didn't truly have much to use for any kind of first aid at all, so it was used for times such as now, when less fortunate needed help. Even though her wound had closed up on the outside, Lupe could still smell blood, and he had gotten enough of a look at the wound to know that any slight bump to it would cause it to rupture. He also noticed that the girl looked familiar, which is, as Kaiein had concluded, gave him the explanation to why she smelled familiar to him before. Dude, isn't that? Lupe stated. Yes, it's her, but right now I'm more worried about her safety, Kaiein said. That cut on her arm, we have to do something to cover it up, Lupe pointed out. I know, Lupe, but first, as much as I hate to say it, we're going to have to open it back up if it's going to heal correctly, without her running the risk of it tearing open again. Why do you think I asked you to bring the first aid kit? Kaiein stated. What do you mean we have to open it back up? She's a vampire, so it says the blood loss won't kill her, but it won't really do her any favors either, Lupe said, shocked at what Kaiein had said. Relax. I'm going to cauterize the cut right after I open it back up. From that point, I'll let you stitch it closed, which will shut the wound completely and let her heal effectively and safely, Kaiein said with a ring of confidence in his voice. Well, I guess that would work, but one question. What's cauterized? Lupe asked before spreading out the blanket on the grass. I'm going to burn the wound and blood vessels around it shut, which will stop the bleeding, Kaiein explained before laying Dusk down on the blanket and wrapping it around her with her injured wrist exposed. You're crazy! How can that possibly work? Lupe snapped. Kaiein let out a small sigh. Way to backpedal there. But to answer your question, remember around 3 years ago, the incident in that forest in Scotland, when we were enlisted to go in and kill a group of monsters who had been terrorizing a town? Kaiein stated. Yeah, I remember all right. Remember you volunteered to go kill monsters, which turned out to be called zombies, by the way, which I ended up getting roped into it, Lupe lashed out. Actually, you walked in the forest with me under no duress, and I distinctly remember a certain someone also going on wildly about how much he'd been itching for a fight. Think hadn't even drive for the client signed the contract before you were walking out the door, Kaiein said, shaking his head as he checked Dusk over for any more injuries and cleaned her face. Well, what's your point? Lupe asked abruptly. Kaiein turned away from Dusk as he got up and took his goggles off his head, laying them on the ground and let the sun dry them. As he used his hands to comb his wet hair back, he walked over to Lupe's truck and pulled a slightly tattered but also quite large book from one of his bags. Even though Kaiein and Lupe both had the blood of monsters, they were in the line of work for hunting them as well. In their time traveling the world, investigating, and if needed, eliminating threats to humans and good monsters alike, Kaiein had collected countless entries for creatures they had encountered in his own personal bestiary, with main notes and reference sketches on strengths and weaknesses of the experience that they had with them. He thumbed through the pages and stopped on one with a photograph of a grotesque form of zombie as the bookmark for it. I'm going to let her skin dry a bit first before I work with her, so we have a few minutes, assuming she doesn't wake up first. Anyways, you mentioned our adversaries at the time so well. We'll say we work with her, because Lupe's the one that's actually... We work with her, so yeah. Anyways, you mentioned our adversaries at the time so well. Clawed zombies, are better referred by their true name of sin revenants, Kaiein said. Yeah, I remember them. You should know by now there's nothing I hate fighting more than zombies, especially clawed ones, let alone anything that should normally be in a grave, Lupe said with a slight snarl. Last I recall, it was basilisks you hate fighting. And you aren't too fond of harpies either. At that time, you were picked up by several and dropped out of the sky through the roof of that house, which wasn't too bad for me because I just fell to a bathroom floor. Because I just fell to a bathroom floor, though you fell right to a bathtub that was at the time occupied by a pretty large woman that proceeded to kick your ass, Kaiein said. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up such warm memories, Kaiein, but my dislike for basilisks and harpies was before we went to Japan to investigate those yokai sightings, Lupe replied. What's so bad about that? I enjoyed the learning experience from bad links we never fought before, Kaiein asked while silently bracing himself. He knew a long-winded explanation was coming. Well, I for sure shit didn't. Let's see. First, there was a cucumber-obsessed turtle demons trying to stick their hand up my ass. Then that demonic old lady who was stealing people's face with skin powder. And let's not forget rude and unhygienic hairy eggplant-eating monsters who used people's bathtubs and killed them if they cleaned up the mess. Hell, Kaiein, even a singing piece of cloth tried to kill me when we were there, Lupe explained. You're talking Kappa, Oshirababa, Hyosube, and Itatomo respectively. None of them were zombies, though, Kaiein stated. I'm talking about that giant skeleton. The gas-headed rude bro, Lupe said. Kaiein slid his palm to his face with authority. How in the hell did he manage that mispronunciation? Kaiein thought to himself. What did I say wrong? Lupe asked. I honestly don't want to know what's more dead, Lupe. The monster you're referring to or its name you just butchered. It's called a Gashadakuro, Kaiein corrected. Still, regardless how its name was pronounced, you can understand why Lupe would gain a hatred for fighting revenant monsters after what they dealt with. More so, getting the creature in question was one they barely managed to survive against. Gashadakuro, a name that translated to starving skeleton. A portion of his name also contained an onomatopoetic term for the rattling and crunching sounds that the creature was known for making. Originally believed to have been a fictional monster with origins as shown in magazines, the two had all too real encounter with an 80-foot-tall skeletal giant. It was an especially dangerous yokai that fell into a subclass of ghosts called Yuri by the Japanese. And the existence of a Gashadakuro was attributed to the vengeful spirits of either soldiers who died in past wars with no proper burial, or those who died of starvation. The negative energy from these spirits channeled their skeletal remains to a semi-unstoppable behemoth, appearing after midnight, cloaked by invisibility and grinding its teeth as it looked for travelers to bite the heads off of so it could drink the blood from their severed necks. Had it not been for Lupe's enhanced hearing picking up on the rattling of the monster's bones before it got too close, it would have likely snapped off either of their heads before they knew what happened. Not that it could do anything to hurt the creature, given its only weakness was to be warded off with a Shinto charm, or the intense anger that fueled the monster burned it out to the point that it set it ablaze. If anything, it came down to sheer luck, in that as they tried everything they could to defeat the monster while dodging its attacks, the rage of the spirits eventually burned hot enough to leave nothing but ashes of their material avatar. Kaiein loved the challenge, and Lupe indeed liked to fight. But encountering another Gashadakuro in the future wasn't on either of their do list, given it was a monster that could only be forced to a point where they destroyed itself, which took them 3 days non-stop fighting to do, and even that was by chance. Names aside, and undead monsters notwithstanding, I still don't understand what 3 years ago in Scotland has to do with your plans for her wound, Lupe said in a more frustrated tone. Kaien's mind thought back. His memories placed on him and Lupe inside a dark forest at midnight with a shroud of mist everywhere. In his hand was a photograph of a happy family as a way of finding a man's wife who had went missing. His thoughts fast forward to when he was held against a tree with five sharp 12-inch slivers of bone from a rotted hand impaled in his stomach and out of his back, with 2 more coming at him from the sides. Sin revenants. Given such a name for how they became such creatures. Originally evil-minded humans feared in their former lives who became monsters driven only by one thing about them they didn't die, which was their evil nature. Claws grew from their fingertips, and unlike a typical zombie that ate flesh due to ravenous hunger, sin revenants did such due to remnants of their cruel past lives combined with such hunger. Quick, unpredictable, should be pretty damn sensible how you lost your arm the way you did due to our lack of experience. Kaiein told Lupe, hardly stopping once to catch a breath. He continued to think back. He avoided further damage by grabbing one of the other ghouls by the arm to sever the claw that had impaled him. Lupe was on the ground, bleeding heavily while holding a blade stump where his arm was severed. I remember now. One of those things sliced my arm off. You've been pretty busted up yourself, but I remember that before I lost consciousness, I saw you running towards me, cutting down and incinerating any of them that came at you. We'd taken out almost all of them, with only a few left that were battling, and I managed to decapitate the one that injured me using my other claw, Lupe explained. He rolled up his right sleeve, exposing a ring of ghost white flesh around his bicep where his fur refused to grow whenever he transformed. Go on, Kaiein said to him, telling him that he was correct so far. When I woke up, my arm was attached to me again, but all you told me was that you stitched it back on. Did you really burn the wound shut? If so, why keep it a secret? Lupe said. As Lupe remained still on the soft soil of the forest, Kaiein ignited a flame in one of his arms. Yes, Lupe, I did burn the wound shut, and the reason I keep it secret is because it's not really a method of doctoring wounds that's the safest thing to do to someone, Kaiein explained. Not the safest. How so? Lupe asked. Because if a person, more specifically a human, is conscious when I use my flames to stop the bleeding, the pain and shock from the procedure could kill them, depending on the size of the wound and amount of damage. I know because it's happened before. Not that such would be an issue with her, given it's not a huge wound, notwithstanding the fact that she's already dead. Either way, I only do it when someone is unconscious because they won't feel it. Though I know you would have survived if you were coherent when I fixed your arm. I just didn't want you howling in my ear. Can we drop this now? I'd like to get this over with before she wakes up, Kaiein said. Secretly, Kaiein had thought back on how the Sin Revenant sliced Lupe's arm off was the woman in the picture, while 2 that Kaiein had struck down were the father and daughter. One of the most vile factors for Sin Revenant was that while becoming one from a normal zombie's bite was dependent on the person being evil enough to at heart, a human bitten by Sin Revenant would still become a Sin Revenant, even if they were completely altruistic in life. He remembered carrying Lupe out of the forest and seeing the entire town in burning ruins. While they were in the forest, the very group of monsters they were after had invaded the town and killed everyone, including the children. It wasn't an issue to kill the monsters themselves without remorse, having not seen them as humans before. That they were informed that they had been sent after those they had been sent after were formerly murderers. Having to slay an entire town of monsters that he had just seen as humans only hours before, humans that Kaiein had originally sworn to protect, that was different. It was a feeling of guilt he constantly carried with him. Sure, man, do your thing, Lupe said, bringing Kaiein back to reality once more. Kaiein sat down next to Dusk and held her by the wrist. He hated what he was about to do, but it was for the better. stop at that right now. He was still thankful she was unconscious, though in his mind, falling in water from a 3,000-foot drop didn't wake her up. He didn't need to worry about her waking up mid-cauterization. He scratched the soft area of skin on Dusk's arm with one of his fingernails and opened with a spray of blood. Kaiein then quickly wrapped his hand around it. Lupe stood by and watched a dim glow of orange form in his hand, similar to when he had punched Dimitri, only now it had a purpose for healing instead of harming. His pyromancy was controllable enough to where his flames would only burn what he wanted with them to. Hence why his clothes never caught fire, let alone anything in the surroundings other than his target. It was such control that kept the rest of the Dusk arm safe from being burned, given Kaiein kept the heat focused solely on her wound. Both of them heard small gasps coming from Dusk's mouth. She's feeling it, but not nearly as much as if she would have if she had been awake. The blood flowing from her reopened cut slowed until finally it stopped altogether. Kaiein then stepped aside so that Lupe could stitch it shut. Minutes later, there. It took 24 stitches, giving that space and close enough to hold the skin as much as possible, but it's done, Lupe said. Kaiein got back down and cleaned the dried blood from the area around the treated wound before wrapping a bandage around it several times, holding it in place with a few strips of medical tape. You know, dude, she's not a newborn kitten. You don't have to treat her so delicately, Lupe joked at the sight Kaiein being so caring over. Just go get your truck, will ya? Kaiein said quickly. While Lupe ran back over to get his truck, Kaiein stayed with Dusk. As he waited, he felt an itch in his nose. Then he sneezed. Dusk suddenly shot up into a seated position, took one look at Kaiein and went into a panic. Kaiein, however, was shot as well. She sleeps through what may as well have been the second coming of Jesus, and that wakes her up? He thought to himself. Who are you? Dusk hurriedly said as she rose up and tried to get back away from Kaiein. Whoa, take it easy, Sunshine. Seeing as you really don't need to move around too much. Yeah. Now, to answer your question, my name is Kaiein Bates. Kaiein told her, trying to calm her down. Not an easy task. Why are my clothes wet? What did you do to my arm? What do you want? And what the fuck is that? Dusk asked continually as more things became apparent to her. Including such a matter of her last question that she pointed out to in the pond. Kaiein just stood up casually as if her hysterical nature was as common to him as a weekday. First question, because we fell into that pond after I saved your life, which, by the way, I thank you isn't needed. Question 2, I could ask you the same thing, but I already know. Though I don't know why you did it, nor is it any of my business. However, you can relax, I won't judge you, and if anything, I doctored your cut so it would properly heal. Third question, I don't want anything except assurance that you're going to be okay, and maybe your name. Question number 4, not sure if you get outside much, but that is what one would call a duck. I assume you're still dazed, so don't worry, the duck is completely harmless as long as he gets a daily offering of bread. Kaiein answered. Dusk sat where she was. Her eyes darting around, she tried to process everything. What do you mean you saved me? Dusk asked. You fell from the sky. Not sure how if that happens with you, but if I wouldn't have been around, then chances are you would have ended up staying on the pavement. The duck would have probably gotten sad from that. Kaiein explained. This is all Dusk's head could handle, considering that her stress was from before had also greeted her when she woke up. Due to such, she quickly jumped up to her feet and backed away from Kaiein even more. Look, I appreciate you saving me, or so you say you did, but I really must be going now, Dusk said nervously. Dash she tried to take off in flight. At the same time, Kaiein casually grabbed the towel off the ground and placed it in another spot before leaning against the tree with his arms crossed. Dusk let out a taxed gasp as she fell on the towel face first and also hard on her stomach. Kaiein shook his head. You could have caught me, she said to him furiously as she held her stomach. You wouldn't have let me, hence why I didn't. Plus, you need to see for yourself that you're in no condition right now to exert yourself, though I at least made sure you wouldn't get dirty. Besides, wouldn't want the duck to get jealous if you ended up in my arms. He's eyeballing you something fierce. Kaiein said with so much seriousness that it was hard to tell he was joking about the last part. Leave the duck out of this, she said. Now you call it a duck. A minute ago you referred to it as a that. So, can you make up your mind? Kaiein continued to joke, to which she twisted her jaw. It's a fucking duck, Dusk shouted. No, it's not. He is in no way getting intimate with another duck. Not that he'd need a wingman to get a quack at a date, Kaiein said, causing Dusk to put her hand to her face and shake her head. Oh, great. Now he's doing dad jokes. Fantastic, she thought to herself. Kaiein smiled slightly. Seriously, though, you need to take it easy. I promise I'm not going to hurt you, so please, just rest. Kaiein said calmly as he stared down at Dusk and held out a hand. How can I be so sure? How do I know you're not just some sex-crazed bastard who only saved my life because you want to rape me and kill me yourself afterwards? Dusk said, her voice still in slight fear. Kaiein just looked away. You know, that really hurts. If I wanted to hurt you, believe me when I say I would have already. Now, if anything, the thing you've just mentioned is something I'm highly against. Rapist? Yeah, I'd rather die before I become one, Kaiein explained. So why'd you save me then? Dusk asked, starting to sound more trusting. No one should ever need a reason to save someone's life, he said. Dusk looked at his hand for a few seconds. Finally, she reached out to pull herself up before jumping forward and hugging him, startling him when she did. Dusk honestly didn't know if trusting this man was the best choice, but if he did save her, then that was something that helped her more than just survival. It helped reassure her their existence mattered. I'm having a pretty rough time today, though I guess that's obvious. Thank you, Kaiein, Dusk said with a single tear falling from her right eye. He smiled as he patted her back. Talk about a complete polarity switch. Regardless, you're welcome, he said simply. At that moment, Lupe drove his truck down towards them. Upon seeing him, Dusk pushed away from Kaiein, back to repelling polarity. What is it? What's the matter? Kaiein asked her. He's a werewolf, she said. In her eyes, Lupe resembled Bane extremely, aside from his mohawk. And it's okay, he's a friend, Kaiein tried to assure her. Without another word, she took flight again and managed to stay airborne, although her movement was full of twitches and sloppiness. Kaiein just watched her as she flew off. I suppose we can blame this on the duck, Kaiein said. What duck? Lupe asked. Forget it, man. Kaiein says he continued to watch her fly off in the distance before turning and walking towards his friend's truck. Lupe had caught a narrowing of Kaien's eyes as he did. I know what you're thinking, Kaiein, but you should maybe just let her go. She's probably going back to the school anyway, Lupe said. Kaiein lifted his motorcycle off the truck before picking up his goggles. She's in no state of mind to be flying, and you know that. She could hurt herself or someone else if she crashes into a street or goes into oncoming traffic and causes an accident from someone trying to dodge hitting her. Even if she doesn't get herself gravely injured, you and me can both be in agreement that she has a lot going on as is without someone's casket being on her conscience. I'm going after her. Kaiein says he put his goggles over his eyes. Lupe gave a slight smile. You're a stubborn bastard, you know that? I know I can't reason with you when your mind is made up like this, so I'll be here when you get back, Lupe said as he let his tailgate down and sat down in the back of his truck. Thanks, man, Kaiein said. Be careful, Lupe said sternly. Kaiein nodded his head as he revved his motorcycle before driving off in the direction Dusk went. Back at the school, Fiona was getting better acquainted with the 3 new students, and the time spent with them realized just what she could learn from them based on their own experiences. Ren and his expertise with fixing things, though she ignored everything he said about being a ninja still. Crow and his shape-shifting abilities, which based on the extent of what he knew, he rivaled Nero's. Especially Finch, who kind of find out was quite a gifted warlock, though he said he was a novice. Her thoughts on them being the one she since had faded, seeing as Finch's aura wasn't anywhere near what she sensed the other night, and she sensed nothing from the other two. Still, she felt the urge to test him. So Finch, you have mentioned some spells you know, such as incantations and words for abilities based around defense, offense, destruction, and also simple pranks. But I'm curious as to if you know if you can do one spell in particular, Fiona told him. Alright, name it. Finch says he sipped from his can of soda. Puppeteer spell. That of taking a random inanimate object and giving it life. I bet you can't, Fiona said, being sure of herself, seeing as not even she, let alone other practitioner of witchcraft that she knew could perform it. It's a high-level spell, and if he could do it, even though he said he was a novice. I don't know that spell. Finch says he placed his can down. Yes, you do, Crow said. This was met with Ren slapping his hand over Crow's mouth and Finch staring at him blankly. Fiona gave a similar stare, alternating between him and Finch as if she was figuring something out. Her eyes then remained locked on Finch, who noticed her staring and grinned. I mean, I do know it. I just don't like bragging about it, Finch said, while at the same time telepathically calling Crow an idiot. Well, I want to see if you really can, Fiona said. Finch looked over at Crow as if he wanted to kill him before looking down at the soda can and waving his hand. Several seconds passed, but nothing happened. So that's all the effort you put into it? If anything, such a spell requires an incantation for it to, she said before being cut off by the side of the aluminum can suddenly twisting and turning. It quickly took on a humanoid shape with the top of the can resembling a tiny top hat. The small figure then walked over to Crow's carton of milk he had on his tray and yanked the straw out of it before suddenly beating on the table with it. Hey, that's my straw, Crow yelled. Crow then caught a smirk from Finch. Fiona, meet Reuben, Finch said as he pointed at the can figure. He's so cute, Fiona squealed. No longer worried about testing Finch, she reached down to it. Reuben swiped at her with the straw. Startling her, she pulled her hand back. What the hell? She said as it pointed the straw at her like a miniature sword. Ren just continued to watch silently. Okay, I think that's enough of a show, Reuben. Time to go. Finch said as he tried to wave his hand over the puppet, only for it to throw the straw down and swipe at him, almost cutting Finch's hand with one of his claw-like fingers before running across the table, causing other students down the line to jump back and yell in surprise with Finch in pursuit. You little shit! Get your ass back here! Finch said to chase the little puppet before it doubled back and headed back towards Fiona, Ren, and Crow. Then out of nowhere, Fiona watched a Japanese throwing knife, a kunai, found its mark on Ruben's body and pinned him to the table. She looked at Ren and saw that he had one of his hands out, an intense look on his face, leaving little doubt that he had thrown the blade. Finch waved a hand over the puddle before putting his hands down on his knees to catch his breath as Ruben melted into a small metallic puddle on the table. It's bad when they say soda's bad for you. Yet a can of it shows more better physical shape when it runs out you, or when it outruns you. Finch says he breathed heavily. He then looked around and noticed that everyone in the cafeteria was looking right at him. Most of their thoughts weren't exactly things Finch wanted to hear. Fiona was also pondering the situation. He animated it without even saying a word, and that dagger. Is Ren really a ninja? She thought to herself. You think too much, Finch said to Fiona, who gasped and quickly tried to suppress her thoughts. Ren looked at Finch and stood up. Can I speak to you in private for a minute? Ren said as he looked at Finch and Crow both. They all walked down the lunchroom, leaving Fiona by herself. Or so she could only hope. You got to sit next to the... words are hard. You got to sit next... Why are my words so hard today? You got to sit next to them? Oh my god, you're so lucky. I think the reason... I'm sorry that I keep on getting caught on my words. I think it's because, I haven't slept last night. I just hate how I keep on, stuttering and everything. I really do apologize. Try it again. You got to sit next to them? Oh my god, you're so lucky, one of the girls across the table said to her. Lucky you'll be having Ruben as company still instead of hearing you talk, Fiona said under her breath. They stepped down to the hall. Ren shook his head. Okay, what do we need to talk about? Finch asked him. What was that scene in there? And where the hell did you come up with Ruben anyway? Ren asked him before Finch pointed at Crow. If Crow hadn't given away that I was telling a white lie, I never would have had to show that I knew that spell. Let alone make up excuses that I just didn't like showing it off. Had I not shown I knew it, then she would have deduced something was up because of Crow giving me away in the first damn place. Finch explained. Hey, I didn't know what you were doing, and seeing as a mental telegram on that would have been nice, that makes it your own fault as well. Besides, you could have just wiped your mind from the event if it was such a big deal, Crow snapped back. Wiping a mind doesn't work in such a small time frame, seeing as it wipes only the minimum of an entire day. Meaning she would have been sitting there at the table wondering who the hell we were, which would have led to several questions I didn't want to answer. Besides, I hate messing with people's minds like that, Finch said. So you hated that one time that I was on a date with that one girl, then while we were at a restaurant, you wiped my mind so I didn't remember her name? Crow asked him. Oh my god, are you really bringing that up? I told you that girl was a hoe and you didn't listen, so I tried to help you. Finch shot back. Enough, alright? Look. I do not have to be a psychic like you to know that she is in there putting two and two together, with each passing second on who we are. So seeing as I have my doubts on us having a lot of time left for all of us to get signed up for the school without any problems, we need Kaiein and Lupe here ASAP. Ren explained in his usual calm tone. Finch closed his eyes. Are you seriously ignoring me? Ren asked him. No, I'm trying to find out where they are. So how about you shutting your trap? Finch told him. If you would be unable to see it coming, I will kick you in the mouth right now for that, Ren told him. We both know you're smarter than that, Ren. Finch explained with his eyes closed still. Ren just waited before Finch spoke up. Well, he and Lupe have separated. It seems Kaiein has found Fiona's vampiric friend who flew off earlier, Finch said. And he is currently chasing her around the city trying to reason with her for something to happen to make her run from him and Lupe. She's in a panic and Kaiein is probably cussing up a storm because she won't listen, Crow said. Ren and Finch both stared at him in disbelief. Okay, good shot, Crow, but how'd you know that? Finch asked. Wait, you mean that guess was accurate? Crow asked. Back across the city. Jeez, for fuck's sake, what the fuck is this? Lady Luck, go fuck yourself for being on some serious fucking PMS today. Kaiein mouthed off as he swayed in and out between cars. He caught with Dusk, who had been flying at a moderate pace before. That was until she heard the sound of his motorcycle and sped up as soon as she saw him behind her. Now his motorcycle is practically muted by his very apparent verbal outlash of frustration. Go away! Dusk yelled back at him. Forget it. Now calm the fuck down before you hurt yourself or someone else, Kaiein yelled back at her. She responded by flying even faster while Kaiein rode his bike and accelerated to keep up with her pace. She looked back at him again. She heard a horn honk loudly and turned her head ahead of her again, just in time to stop herself from flying in the path of a semi-truck at the intersection. She pushed forward, barely missing the truck before flying out of the intersection and hovering over a sidewalk. She knew that it was in a long line of vehicles passing under the green light. Alright, that should slow him down, she thought to herself. She didn't notice Kaien's motorcycle pass underneath the truck. I appreciate that, Sue. Thank you so much. I was reading the chat and kind of got in your car right here. Let me see. Alright, she then noticed that Kain's motorcycle passing underneath the truck. What caught her attention more was that he wasn't on it. Instinctively, her eyes wandered upwards to a shape moving above the truck. Kaien had jumped into the air several feet above the truck and was now diving hands first towards the trailer. This was followed by a flash showing him planting his hands on top of the truck and performing a front handspring off it before tugging to another flip and descending towards the still in motion, still balanced motorcycle. One foot planted firmly on the seat while he bounced the other on one of the handlebars. And more or less surfed over to Dusk. He hopped down and sat on his bike before crossing his arms and looking at her. "Want to keep going?" he said with a slight smile. She responded by flying off again. "I'll take that as a yes," Kaien said to himself before going after her again. As Dusk flew in and out of traffic yet again, she continued to hear his motorcycle. Any crowded area she could find, each corner, every sharp curve she rounded. She knew he was right behind her no matter how much she tried to lose him. She thought about going higher to get away from him, but she had already failed once and didn't want to run the risk again. He claimed he saved her, but the emotions that made her drop her guard to embrace and thank him were no longer apparent, instead replaced by her feelings of distrust and longing for solitude, as well as a growing infuriation due to his seemingly endless persistence. "Damn you, you stupid jerk! What the hell do you want? You stupid!" she yelled back at him. "Good grief! If you're gonna insult me, at least use something that can be considered a coherent insult. You can't just say I'm stupid when there's so much to go with it. Stupid ass, stupid bastard, stupid sawed-off son of a bitch. You have so many possibilities," Kaien said. "You stupid smart ass," she shouted back. "See, there you go again. That makes no sense either. I can't be stupid and smart at the same time." Kaien shouted back as he continued to pursue her. "Do you ever shut up?" she shouted. "How many more people are going to ask me that today?" Kaien thought to himself. Dusk, however, was in a different mindset of thought. There's no way someone so annoying could have saved me. So obnoxious. Why can't he just crash his bike and fall face first to an open manhole so he can find out what shit smells like, since he thinks his doesn't stink? Dusk found herself thinking rapidly. She was pulled from her thoughts by the sound of a woman screaming. "Someone save my baby!" Dusk heard as she looked and saw a baby stroller rolling out into the street, right into the path of an oncoming car. "Oh God, no!" Dusk yelled as she doubled back in an attempt to save the child. She then stopped as she watched Kaien drive in front of the child just as the vehicle was about to hit it. She turned away, afraid to look at the sound as the sound of twisted metal and screams filled the air. All of them became silent as she kept her eyes closed. For anything, as much as she had felt contempt towards him, she felt horrible and wishing for him to crash. She then heard a voice. "You know, this has been fun. People almost dying aside, but maybe it's time we skip these oh-so-pleasant formalities and start over before someone actually gets hurt," Kaien said. He stood there with his arms cradling the infant as he lowered a foot from the bumper of the car. The entire front end was mangled, though the driver was unharmed. Did he stop that car with just a kick?" Dusk thought. Kaien kept his eyes locked on her as she floated in midair, until the moment that the bumper fell off the car. At this occurrence, he showed a smile while still looking at her as if he was trying not to laugh. The child's mother came over to Kaien in tears. She looked to the baby from his arms. "God bless you. Thank you so much. You're an angel," she said to Kaien. "Not exactly, ma'am, but you're very welcome. Just be more careful, huh?" Kaien said kindly. Dusk flew down to Kaien. "You really did save me, didn't you?" she said, leaning to Kaien, slapping his hand to his face. "That's what I've been trying to tell you all this time. Haven't we already gone through this?" Kaien said as he held his arms out to say, "Duh." "I'm sorry," Dusk said to him. Kaien shook his head as he shot her an angry look while walking around to check on the man who had been behind the wheel. He was so shaken up that he didn't get out of the car. As seeing he was okay, Kaien reached out into his pockets and took out his wallet. "Sorry about your car, sir, but this should cover getting it fixed with a little extra on the side for you. Do some early Christmas shopping or something, eh?" Kaien said as he handed the man several $100 bills, giving him a wide smile and a thank you in return. He then noticed Dusk staring at him, her expression that of guilt. "Look, kindness is something not enough people in this world have, and those who do show it tend to have very shitty ulterior motives to it, so I get it. Plus, I happen to be a demon, and we are known for tongues of a serpent's nature. But I'm honest compared to the pretentious bitches in my past bloodline. I could have let you just let you fall from the sky, but I didn't. I could have just let you fly off without giving a damn about the well-being of you or anyone else, but I didn't. And I could have let that baby die, but I didn't. Also, I wouldn't be so angry because innocent people almost got hurt if I was a liar out to hurt you. As in one who relishes in the pain of others," he lectured. I said, "Oh, sorry. You're right. It was foolish for me to judge so quickly, and I don't know what else I can say really to express that I realized I was wrong," Dusk said. Kaien smiled in reply. "I'm not saying you were wrong for being cautious, only that how you handled things was wrong. Nonetheless, it's over and no one got hurt, but I really would like to start over from the beginning. I'm Kaien Bates, and there's room for one more on here if you want your apology accepted," Kaien said as he looked at Dusk before getting back on his motorcycle and holding a hand out to her, asking her to climb on. He risked his safety just to try and calm her down and save her from a possibly fatal fall. And now he had helped a newborn child keep living with compassion given to the driver as well by giving him so much money without a sign of greed at all. He couldn't be that bad if he was so caring, though given recent events, she was still vaguely uncertain. She was ready to take that risk anyway. Yes, she was scared, but her fear wasn't worth allowing her worries to continue ruling her existence. Dusk Matthews, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Kaiein. She said. She walked over and climbed on the back of his motorcycle. As Kaiein rode his bike and they rode off, she wrapped her arms around his waist. So seeing as I owe you the time to do so, tell me about yourself, Kaiein. You stayed in Raven Rock your whole life? Dusk found herself asking him. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Relocated several times since then with my family before we settled here when I was 9. Let's just say with our family history before us, it was kind of hard to live in peace out in a solely mortal world. Kaiein said as he kept his eyes on the road. Family history? She asked him. Sure, back there you notice I'm not exactly human, though I already explained what I am. I come from a long line of elemental demons who more or less personify the term fully. A lot of people have been hurt by my bloodline, and thus me and my family consisting of my mother, father, and brother came to Raven Rock due to the city's acceptance of those like us, Kaiein explained. Where's your family now? Dusk continued to ask. Kaiein looked down in the back of the road. My parents are dead. Murdered when I was 16. My brother, well, I don't know where he is, so I've been pretty much on my own for the past several years in terms of family. I've set for life due to the fortune my parents left me in their will, but it was at the cost of their lives. I might want to change that a little bit too. Doing like a little editing here and there still. Cash from coffins wasn't exactly my favorite way of gaining financial stability, so any chance I get to use the funds I gained from their deaths to help others in their lives, like you saw back there, I take it. Kaiein said. The Dusk felt sad to come over her again. Not for herself and all the events that happened that day, but for this man she had just met who lost so much and still seemed to have a heart of gold not corrupted by greed. A man who, though he seemed to not have as much to his name, he thought even much of, even with a large inheritance. He had a heart that saw another person's life as worth more than material possessions. A heart that saw the right things as meaningful. She had met snobby types during her time in Raven Rock Hollow who put material things before friends, family, and their own other halves, who wore their wealth and delusions of entitlement above anyone else. Something in Kaien's voice told her that it was no act, or at least she hoped it was true. He was telling the truth, wasn't he? She only continued to hope. Kaiein, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sorry I ran from you. I just had a hard time trusting anyone the past few days due to strange events that have happened at my school. I doubt you'd want to take the time to listen, she told him. Kaiein glanced back and smiled slightly. I already apologized for your actions earlier, to which I once again have to say it's understandable, but in regards to my tragedies, I don't exactly like being given sympathy about things. Now, as for the events you mentioned, I have plenty of time given your uniform says Raven Rock University, and me and Lupe have orientation there today, Kaiein told her. Although her stomach nor heart properly functioned, she felt something drop in her body at these words. She just now learned that he was one of the new arrivals being signed up to the school today. That in itself wasn't the problem. A werewolf knocked Bane out the other night as a threat from a group who warned Dimitri that they were arriving on the same day as the next wave of new students. And one of those new students was Kaien's friend, who just so happened to also be a werewolf. Also, in contrast to the truth in his voice on his backstory, there was also something about Kaien's face she couldn't place her finger on. Something she couldn't place, yet could remember that it was something she didn't like. Still, she didn't let go of him. Instead, she kept her thoughts and fears to herself for the sake of trying to find out as much as she could. Not to mention, if Kaiein was one of the ones from before, that meant that he had possibly saved her twice, regardless of his reasons. That, however, didn't stop her from pressing the issue in a seemingly indirect approach. Well, I hope you can handle the atmosphere, seeing as those odd events are kind of creepy. Voices in trees, arrows knocking out people's teeth, a werewolf taking an attack on one of the main bullies of the campus who's also a werewolf, Dusk said. Kaiein glanced back at her. I'm sure I'll manage just fine, he said. Dusk simply nodded her head, though she honestly felt he was indeed hiding something. So what about you, Dusk? What's your story? Kaiein asked her. It's complicated, she said simply. She was dodging answering his question, though not out of distrust towards letting him know more of her. She just hated talking about her life before Raven Rock Hollow. Kaiein, however, once again showed his persistence. And creatures like us live complicated lives. Plus, I shared my story, so I'll be fair and ask the same question you start off with. How long have you been in this city? Kaiein questioned her. She had to answer. She knew that if she didn't, then he might catch on that she was unsure of his intentions. Only around 2 years. I've spent most of my life in another country, she said. Ah, so your family likes to travel. Which country? He asked her. Wasn't exactly a family vacation. I lived in Siberia, Dusk said. Sounds like the most likely places one would probably enjoy living in my opinion. It's considered quite inhospitable in some parts due to its practically Arctic climate, Kaiein said. Dusk looked down as she focused her eyes on the passing lines on the road before continuing. She couldn't believe what she was about to tell this man that she just met. I didn't have much choice, Kaiein, seeing as I was kidnapped as a baby. Eventually, I managed to escape, and afterwards, I came here after a bad reunion with my mother, seeing as I had been turned into by the vampire lord who took me, and she had last seen me as an infant. I have no home in the human world, I guess you can say, though by what you told me of your family before coming here, you know the feeling of exile all too well, she told Kaiein. Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that. Sure, it must have been horrible being abducted for so long. I won't imagine what it was like, especially when you didn't have the chance to live a normal human life, Kaiein said. You really don't. I don't even know how many scars I have on my back still to go with the two on my neck, Dusk explained. Kaiein suddenly put one of his feet hard on the ground, forcing the motorcycle into an abrupt stop before he got off. Let me see. Kaiein said simply with a look of anger on his face. Dusk moved her hair to expose her neck and the two puncture wounds on it. No. I already saw those when I was getting you out of the pond, plus it's standard fare for a vampire to have such markings anyway. I meant your back, Kaiein said bluntly. Why? It's really not that important, Kaiein. It's in the past, so let it go, Dusk said to him. But it shouldn't have happened at all. Now show me, please, Kaiein asked her, showing sincerity in his voice aside from the anger. Dusk gave us a deep sigh before hopping off the bike and pulling the back of her shirt up. Why am I doing this? I just met him, so why is he so curious about this, let alone upset? It's not like he could do anything to fix it if he truly wants to, Dusk asked herself. She closed her eyes tight, seeing as Kaiein was the only man she'd ever shown her scars to other than the headmaster on the day she came to the school. He had fallen silent, which worried Dusk. Kaiein, however, wasn't silent due to disgust, but anger. She didn't see it, but his entire body was shaking from how livid he was. On her back were dozens of scars in the form of risen lines that went from the top of her back and past the fabric of her bra all the way to her waist. The damage resembled a wooden cutting board that had seen many years of heavy use. Dusk bit her lip to stop it from quivering as she closed her eyes even tighter. She then felt his hand gently lower her shirt back down. Give me a name, was all Kaiein said as he turned her back around to face him. His eyes were narrow with a no-nonsense look on his face. She also noticed his fist was balled up and to the point that a few drops of blood were falling from it from how tight it was clenched. His name was Duncan. The vampire lord had many minions that I knew not the names of, but the one who tortured me with a whip was named Duncan. Now, even though I told you, please, Kaiein, don't do anything. Out of concern for your safety, please listen to me, Dusk pleaded. Did I just say his safety? What about my safety? She thought. Kaiein just gave a small laugh. Out of my safety? Dusk, believe me when I say this vampire lord you mentioned, that son of a bitch and his horde of trained bats are the ones who have safety in jeopardy. Seeing you don't abuse a female on my watch, let alone anyone innocent, he told her. But he never laid a hand on me to harm me except for turning me, Dusk replied. But he let them hurt you. Thus, he is just as guilty and just as dead. Dusk, I want a name, and not of the one who gave you the scars on your back, but the one who allowed it. Kaiein says he put his hand on the hilt of his blade. Something about Kaien's voice, as well as thinking back to his persistence in chasing her down earlier, gave her the impression of that he was the type of person who, when their mind was made up, they saw a task through. Look in his eyes didn't give room for bluffs either. The way Dusk perceived this was that all it took was one mention of a name and he would hunt them down. With how much money he had, she had no doubts he could easily afford the services of someone who could find Lord Sarek's location if he couldn't do so himself. She wanted to believe that, more than anything. She truly wanted to look at this man in front of her as genuine and that his backstory was as true as the present. That his apparent defense of her her well-being was noble. She didn't want to accept that there was a possibility of deceit and that he was involved in Saturday's events, with reason to hide any involvement being malevolent even though harm was caused to Hell's prophets. She wanted to believe that someone who could kill the monster that stole her life was right there in front of her. She couldn't. Not with certainty. Kaiein said that compassion was rare, and he was right in that. But for her, it was too rare to be lucky enough to have been given it genuinely without a catch. The truth was, Dusk was scared Lord Sarek would come back for her. While she saw this as a possible invitation to be rid of him once for all, she didn't want to risk anyone's safety for herself, nor did she want to see it as true only to be wrong. Lord Sarek himself had given Dusk many kind words, all while claiming he had known nothing of it. He had known nothing of it each time she was hurt by his minions, and that he would have ordered them to stop otherwise. But she knew that he knew. He always said that he would punish them, but he never did. He saw everything at almost all times in his stronghold. After all, he had eyes everywhere. While he lived in a castle, Lord Sarek in his many years of seeming immortality kept up with the times via countless cameras all around the castle linked to a room full of monitors. Whenever he wasn't finding entertainment in watching his minions rip apart any poor soul they had brought back from a nearby town, he was watching Dusk. Whenever she saw a camera in her bathroom or bedroom, she knew he may have been watching from the other end of one of those never blinking, always watching metal eyes. And it was his sick voyeuristic practices which led her to showering fully clothed and changing into a gown for bed only when she was already under the sheets. Sarek faked kindness to get closer to her and manipulate her. Her thoughts on Kaiein doing the same were something she regretted. But be it for concern towards herself or him, she knew she would regret sending him to his death, and also if he was truly no threat to her. Kaiein, I can't, regardless of what you say. He's very powerful and also cold and incapable of showing compassion. He's murdered every person who's come to his castle, including seasoned hunters who want his head just as you do. He's a monster and I can't risk your safety, so please just let it go, she said to Kaiein, practically pleading with him. Kaiein just narrowed his eyes. He took his hands off his sword and nodded his head only once before getting back on his bike. Thank you, she said to him simply as she got back on her seat as well. Don't thank me. I agreed to not pushing the issue with you anymore, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try and find it myself. Siberia can only have so many places he may dwell, considering that, as I said, it's more or less a scarcely populated climate, and it'll be more scarcely populated after I kill him. Kaiein explained. Dusk thought trivial to argue with him, seeing as he was being very assertive on going after Sarai, but she didn't understand why. How could a soul be truly compelled to care about someone they barely knew? She didn't see what made her so important to where someone who was practically still a stranger would risk his life just to get revenge for something that didn't even honestly involve him. She looked down and noticed he had put her arms tighter around Kain's waist, and also noticed while lost in her thoughts that she had rested her head against his back. She felt slightly risen skin against her cheek through the fabric of his jacket, and also his nails seemed to find a few scars on his side as well. Scars just as real as hers, even if she didn't know the story to them. She wanted this new friend to be real as well. Even with the distrust, she no longer felt so alone in the tragedy she had endured now that she met someone who compared to her losing of a family she never knew. He lost the only family he had left. Please just let him be real, she said to herself. A few minutes later, after a couple more turns, they were back where Kaiein had left Lupe in his truck. Kaiein then showed a look of disgust. Lupe, you nosy fuck, Kaiein said. Lupe was still sitting on the tailgate of his truck in his wolf form. Now he had Kain's notebook in his hands as he read to himself, having stopped on a short poem Kaiein had wrote. Scream. No one hears you ask for comfort as you sit in shadows, cold and alone. Take the time to break the silence, to scream and force yourself to be known. They may look at you as insane. It's hospital calls beckon for one possibly in pain, but you're no longer a specter to their thoughts. You're visible as much as the house in flames. We all have times of doubt, where we think nothing matters. Sometimes a scream goes a long way, momentarily mending a heart that's shattered. It's only human emotion, seems so sacred on rooftops and in a storm, laying out there stricken reasons for many years and seasons, holding back agony from seeing loved ones in caskets no longer silently mourned. So maybe it sounds crazy, maybe a reality that to you should stay a dream. Instead of punching walls or cutting your wrists, I once was a bad example of this. Sometimes it's just better to scream. Kaiein parked his bike and walked over to Lupe quickly. And I'll be taking that, Kaiein says he snatched the book from him. Hey, I was reading that. I did the voice wrong. Hey, I was reading that, Lupe said. Exactly. Was reading it. Ever heard of invasion of privacy, asshole? Kaiein said. Lupe's wolf-like ears drooped down sad and somewhat before glancing behind Kaiein to see Dusk timidly walking over. Anyways, seeing his introductions didn't exactly work out before. Dusk Matthews, this is Lupe Kinley. Lupe, this is Dusk, Kaiein said. Lupe put out a hand to shake Dusk's. Relax, don't bite. At least not usually. Lupe told her with a smile. Shook his hand and smiled herself. Nice to meet you, Lupe. And also, I want to apologize for flying off as I did, she said. No, I'm done, he said. Some guy's car excluded, Dusk thought to herself. Lupe glanced over at Kaiein, who was looking at something on his motorcycle. Something wrong? Lupe asked. My brakes are out of commission. I assume it happened while I was chasing her. I just now got a chance to check it myself, Kaiein explained. Wait, you mean to tell me that I was riding with you on a motorcycle without any brakes? Kaiein, what if we had to stop to keep from getting in an accident? You could have been killed, Dusk said to him, somewhat angry. She hoped he wouldn't bring out the irony of the multiple accidents she almost caused herself. As you saw, I could stop it just fine with my leg. Plus, I can't exactly be killed that easily unless my head is cut off, Kaiein explained. The fact that he didn't make any eye contact with her as he looked over his motorcycle didn't sit well with her. What about if I'd been thrown off, she replied, mocking his casual tone at what could have been considered a life or death ordeal. I would have caught you, Kaiein told her, his head still turned from her as he shook one of the tires with his hand. And what if you'd been tossed off, she asked still, but I wasn't. If however I was, I would have done a barrel roll and land on my feet. He replied back yet again without looking. That would mean you would have had to somehow fly upwards while sailing to the side from the crash, spin around and land on your feet. You mean an aileron roll, Dusk corrected. I don't have ailerons like an airplane, therefore I can't do an aileron roll. But since I have a toothpick in my pocket and toothpicks and barrels are both made of wood, I have something more in relation to a said barrel, so I would do a barrel roll, Kaiein replied. Be it the complete absurdity of his reply that he still didn't look at it as he spoke so calmly, or both. Dusk just shook her head and kept silent. It's all good, though. I have a guy that can look at it later today. Just need to call him and let him know in advance, Kaiein explained before reaching into his pocket. He then showed a confused look as he started frantically reaching into every one of his pockets. Damn it! Just realized my phone's gone. It's probably at the bottom of that pond now, and even if I did have it in my pocket, it wouldn't work anyway. Kaiein said, showing a look of frustration. You mean this phone? I took it out of your pocket while spinning you around. Kinda learned that at one time. Lupe said before tossing the phone to Kaiein, who caught it. Kaiein knew exactly what he was talking about. Their chance encounter with the Gacha de Kuro's side, they managed to defeat or at the very least scare off just about every other malevolent monster they had encountered. This is primarily thanks to Kaiein doing research on a potential foe prior to a case, assuming he wasn't versed in knowledge on it already. Just about all of them, with one other exception. An exception that sent a chill down Kain's spine as he thought back once again. The duo were 7 miles offshore in the Pacific Ocean one night after taking on an investigation of a massive creature that attacked multiple ships. They encountered multiple sea monsters that were practically of kaiju-sized proportions during cases and while simply traveling, so taking such a case wasn't anything new to them. If anything, being a fan of Japanese kaiju movies in his childhood, Kaiein jumped at the chance to fight the same kind of giant monsters he had idolized growing up. Evidence collected, however, stated that the ships had been broken into by something with cephalopod-like tentacles, leading them to believe it was a kraken. But this was before Kaiein was shown photographs of both survivors and those killed by the creature. Whatever they saw was terrifying enough to turn their hair white. And while Kaiein and Lupe thought the ships destroyed were small vessels, it was after seeing photographs of the wreckage they realized that whatever it was, it had been sinking cruise ships. Which they knew a kraken was capable of being doing because while known for being a gigantic, no kraken had ever been recorded of such size. When they reached the vicinity of where their occurrences had been the most frequent, something had bumped their boat when that forced sent Kaiein overboard. It was while he was unaware that he saw it. 2 gigantic glowing orange orbs floating in the dark and cold depths beneath them. Then as both suddenly formed a sharp curve, Kaiein realized that what he was looking at were eyes, and whatever they belonged to was angry, hungry, and staring back at him. As he quickly swam back to the surface, he could feel the sheer force of whatever was beneath him churning the water as it pursued him, forcing him to swim harder to not only outpace the creature, but to keep from being pulled back down. The second Kaiein reached the top of the water, he yelled for Lupe to start the boat as the water around him started to bubble and form into violent waves. Once he was aboard, Lupe drove out of the area full speed without slowing down until they could see land nearby. After they had docked, Kaiein told Lupe what he saw. In response, Lupe extended a claw and cut off a few small strands of Kaien's hair before holding him out to him. While only a small section with the rest unaffected, some of his hair turned white just like that of all the other victims of the monster. In the many cases they accepted, it was the only one they called off before it was concluded. The creature was still out there in the deep, wide expanse of the ocean, and it was a loose end that Kaiein hated not tying up. Even after growing stronger and more seasoned in the years that had passed since that night. Not even the monster that had killed his parents struck so much fear into him. Yet the only casualties from his meeting with the sea creature were the pigments in some of his hair and a cell phone, but it still terrified him. That was without him even seeing its face. Just its eyes. So now we've gotten all this out of the way, I think it's time we get to the school. Kaiein says he picked the motorcycle up with his bare hands to carry it back to Lupe's truck, where he proceeded to tether it down. Lupe then saw Kaiein get an energy drink out of his messenger bag. He needs to slow down, Lupe said. You mean the energy drink? I drink them myself even though I don't really benefit from caffeine. I just like the taste. She explained to him. But that's his 12th a day. It won't hurt his body, but he's been running himself to exhaustion due to his refusal to sleep. I can only imagine what kind of will it's taking him to stay awake, let alone sane right now, even with all the sugar he's burning through. Lupe told her. Why does he not sleep? Dusk asked. Nightmares. It's bad when here we are, the type of things that humans are scared to have dreams about, yet things haunt us too, Lupe said. Are the nightmares related to the death of his parents? Dusk asked. He told you about them? Lupe asked in return. Another feeling of guilt lashed onto her mind. So what he said about his past is true, she stated. Why wouldn't it be? Even if he was a liar, I doubt Kaiein would degrade himself to dishonor his parents' names like that, Lupe said. Dusk caught a look confused on Lupe's face, but let him not speak on it anymore. He didn't push the subject and said nothing else either. After Kaiein secured his bike, he looked at the two and motioned for them to come on, as he opened the passenger door to Lupe's truck. Ladies first, Kaiein said to Dusk, which she got in the middle seat while Kaiein got on the far right. The tone of his voice was one that seemed to be lacking of any exhaustion in Dusk's view. If he was really running on fumes like Lupe said, he wasn't showing it. Seconds later, they were back on the road. Kaiein looked out the window before grabbing a slice of pizza out of the box. And all that had happened after he and Lupe had come out of the pizza parlor he had neglected to eat. Dusk thought about how she missed lunch due to leaving the school as she stared at his food. He stopped his hand midway to his mouth as he glanced at her and a hungry look on her face. He knew that when it came to things other than blood, vampires didn't find sustenance. But he also knew that a craving was a craving when it came to something one could still taste. I'd offer you a slice, but it has garlic powder on it. I can wait to eat it if it would upset you to stuff my face in front of you, Kaiein said. She smiled. I'm not offended by garlic. I don't know why, but I don't suffer from most vampire weaknesses, she told him. Really? Oh, well, by all means. He says he held the box towards her, to which she grabbed a slice and started to take a bite. Whoa, watch it, Kaiein yelled. Volatile as Dusk yelped and showed a look of discomfort. How's it still like it's right out of the oven? Dusk said with some of the words inaudible due to the fact that her sore tongue was clenched between her teeth. I told you I was elemental demon, but I guess I left out the part where I was supposed to explain that my element is fire. Ever since we got in the truck and I picked up the box, I've been using a low-level stream of heat to warm the food to back up. It's one of several ways I can use heat aside from controlling my body and blood temperatures and actually creating fire out of thin air. So I can also heat water even if I'm fully submerged. It's also how I dotted your cut given I cauterized it, he explained. She looked at Kaiein and then back at the pizza before slowly putting it in her mouth. She just found out he had intentionally burned her to better heal her wound, but she was too hungry to question his ethics and such. Careful, Kaiein says. She gently bit into the slice and showed no signs of discomfort. Make sure to leave some for the others, Lupe said. Kaiein shot him a dirty look while Lupe put a hand to his mouth as if he said something he shouldn't have. Others? Who are these others you're talking about? Dusk asked in suspicion. Other students, Kaiein said quickly. She raised an eyebrow. You do realize there are hundreds, right? Dusk explained to him before taking another bite of the pizza. First come, first serve, Kaiein replied. Dusk could see one thing clearly. The look Kaiein shot Lupe and the reaction Lupe had, no doubt about it. They were hiding something. Back at the school, Fiona was still in the lunchroom, sitting by herself at a table sipping from a can of soda through a straw. She noticed that her 3 new friends had been gone for at least 15 minutes. Lunch was going to be over soon. Then she heard a conversation over at another table between 2 male students. Hey, look what someone took a video of in the city just a while ago and posted on GhoulTube. It's gotten 500,000 plus views and it was just uploaded less than an hour ago, one said as he showed the other student his phone. GhoulTube was the supernatural world's answer to YouTube and also the page responsible for any of the videos that appeared on YouTube that involved fake sightings of monsters. While many of the videos posted by users on YouTube were indeed fake with clickbait titles to gain likes and views, there were many that were uploaded as true cryptid sightings, only to be replaced with a fake video by a special anonymous few who wanted to keep the outside world from knowing about most of the monsters that existed, and act out of mutual stake for the humans and the supernatural. And while in Ray Rock Hollow, one could easily type in YouTube or GhoulTube and pull up both in a web browser URL search engine, GhoulTube was completely unknown to the outside world through a similar mysterious force as the fog around the city. Someone outside the city by chance learned of GhoulTube, typing the URL would result in a 404 error page. Whoa, this guy's a beast with that recurve bow. You just made that arrow bounce off the ground? I've never seen anyone who's that good of a shot, the other one said. These words Fiona strangled on her drink. Recurve bow? Arrow? As all the thoughts in her head said over and over again as she tried to catch her breath. She suddenly found her back being patted. You should not drink so fast, Ren told her. Yeah, maybe. But I kind of got overtaken by the thought of something, but that's not important. Where did you guys go? And where are Crow and Finch? She asked. They both went outside. Ren said as he sat back down. Fiona, however, didn't hear Ren. Did he just take a bullet to the head and crumble that guy's gun? One of the students said. Okay, now I see where the video got the name Mad Archer Skill Guy Makes It Rain, the other one said. Fiona watched Ren walk over and peek down at the phone. He showed a blank expression that quickly turned to a twitch of his eyebrow. You idiot, Ren said to himself before he heard the other students gasp and saying words of excitement. Glancing around, he saw that all the students in the lunchroom were on GhoulTube and watching the same video. Ren, what's wrong? You like you've seen a ghost? Fiona asked him as she walked over. No, more like a realization that I have to face a demon, he said to her. Hey man, no offense, but we're trying to listen to this, and I can't hear it due to you and Fiona talking, the student with the phone said to Ren. Of course, my apologies. Can you show me the title to that video, though? I only caught a bit of what you said your friend said it was, Ren asked him. Sure thing, the student said. The student lifted his phone closer so that Ren could see the title. He nodded to say thanks and immediately teleported out of the lunchroom while Fiona slapped her palm to her face. He just came back, she said to herself. Seconds later, a bell rang which signaled that lunch was over. Her class for advanced witchcraft and spells would be starting in the next 2 minutes. She walked, however, she took her phone out and went on the GhoulTube. 2 minutes was enough time for her to see for herself. Outside in the front of the school, Finch and Crow were talking to a couple of female students who were smoking before their next class when Ren appeared right in front of Finch. We have a dilemma, he said as he pulled his touchscreen phone out and went to GhoulTube with a few swipes and taps. Dude, if you're trying to trick me into watching that video that involves two succubi in a cup, I swear, Finch said. I love that video, one of the female students blurted out. Crow, Finch, Ren, and even the girl's friend all stare her blankly, with Crow slowly stepping away. You need professional help, the girl's friend said before putting her cigarette out and walking back inside, followed by the girl who tried to reason ways to defend herself. Okay, now with that deciding factor on why I will never date her out of the way, just what were you about to show me, Ren? Finch asked him. Ren pulled up the video as Finch and Crow got close, with Finch lifting another can of soda to his mouth. Upon looking, Finch spit the liquid out of his mouth as well as a slew of incoherent babble due to trying to speak while coughing, leading to Ren patting his back as he did with Fiona. Although you are having a more misfortune with sodas today than others, it would seem that it is the effect that his little round of shenanigans is having on people. The main seem to be taking his actions as entertainment. The entire lunchroom had been watching this before I came out here. And as you can tell by the views, our friend has become the celebrity of a viral video and a reason for people such as you and Fiona to spray degrees of liquefied sugary bliss from their mouths, preceded by borderline asphyxiation, Ren said. Why would she have cause of concern to that, though? She doesn't know Kaiein, Finch said as he still struggled to breathe. But she had an arrow save her life the other night, and now it just so happens there's a video circulating of someone using a recurve bow very effectively only a couple days later in the same city that she is in. Think about it, Ren explained. Well, it's on the internet, and students here are talking, which can't be helped. That aside, I picked up on Kaiein a few seconds before you came out, and they, along with Fiona's friend, are only minutes away from here, since he did manage to calm her down. Though from what I can tell, she doesn't trust him fully and is putting on an act. I believe she's caught about 50-50 because, like Fiona, she's linking Kaiein to a few nights ago, and so we need to be ready to tackle this head on when it comes about fully, Finch said. So in other words, time is short, Ren deduced. Obviously. I have reason to believe that our cover is going to be blown soon as far as everyone involved with the other night is concerned. Aside from Kaiein bringing unneeded popularity to himself, since the other students will recognize him from the video the moment he shows up, Finch explained. Probably the whole city as well. Look, Crow says he pointed inside to a television that was bolted up towards the ceiling. God damn it. That idiot. Ren said as he walked inside, followed by Crow and Finch. The channel was playing the news, namely the Dragontown shootout. And Kaiein was front and center with arrows flying all directions. The same with the colorful words from his mouth. Though being a public broadcast, his slew of profanity and other lewd words were being bleeped out. Then stopped seconds after he crumpled the robber's gun. The reason unknown to those watching the broadcast was because it was only seconds later that Lupe yelled for everyone to get down to avoid the effects of Kaien's Ghost Rider stampede. Well, I have to give him credit. That Make It Rain joke was pretty clever, Finch said. This is serious, man. You should have told him to let it go the second you sensed that he was going back to help, Ren said. You know how stubborn he is, Ren. I get better results dropping a piece of meat on a kicked anthill and shouting for the entire colony to become vegetarians, Finch replied. Doesn't matter, you two. I'm more concerned about what'll happen when that Fang douche and his friends get back here. Kaiein shot his Fang out the other night, and now there's a viral video online that everyone at school is starting to talk about. Not to mention, it's obvious that Fiona is very close to figuring out who the hell we are due to Kaiein, Crow said. That's when Ren heard the sound of dropping books behind him. Fiona had just heard everything and saw the newscast on TV as she was on her way to class, even though it was just seconds before she had watched the now infamous internet video of Kaiein. She also had her spellbook drawn. Okay. Now, given that I just performed a mental be kind rewind on what you just said, who the hell are you guys? And I don't want anything other than the truth, Fiona said. Ren glanced over and saw that Rose wasn't at the admissions desk. Great. She was probably still out at lunch. Fiona has free reign, Ren thought to himself. Well, Fiona lashed out. It is quite complicated, Ren said. That's when Scarlet stepped in from around the corner. We're all ears, she said. Ren and Finch both looked at Crow. And you're all mouth. Is there a possibility that you and Kaiein are related? Finch said to him. Hey, how's it my fault this time when both of you were talking as well? Crow said in anger. With those words, he found his air supply cut off with his back firmly pushed against the wall. As she held Crow up by his neck, Scarlet gave a cold glare to which Ren tried to pull her arm loose. Scarlet, please do not do this. You shall know everything soon, but you have to calm down. Damn it, Scarlet, listen to me, Ren said. Finch attempted to step in, only to have a vine suddenly snap at him like a whip. He looked over to see Fiona staring at him, waving a single finger to signify that she wasn't going to let him interfere. Speak quick. Because I didn't need a reason to kill him before. Think about what I may do now that I have many. Scarlet said as she continued to choke the life out of Crow. End of chapter 5. So as you guys saw right there, a lot of like, things kind of like, I don't really know if I would say like I kind of picked up the pace here. I kind of like, this is I think like the part of the book where I really want to try like do like a lot of different things, like in regards to kind of go into the whole backstory with Kaiein and Lupe, in regards to things they've done in their profession previously, in regards to like the loss they've dealt with, in regards to seeing people die, unsolved cases, and a little bit of comedy in regards to like Lupe, just one trip to Japan pretty much, practically scarring Lupe for life, and the fact that he pretty much, hates fighting undead creatures. But, obviously, like, the main takeaways here was, like, kind of like, really trying to hit, like, the point home on what's coming in the next chapter. It's a big cliffhanger there, obviously. You're kind of, like, seeing this whole thing with, even though Kaiein and Lupe, it's safe to see that all things kind of pointing that, our guys here, they are good people, they are on the up and up. It's kind of like, putting that whole concept there in regards to the girls having, like, proper reasons for, having distrust here. It's kind of like the whole thing with, like, how you see in real life. It's kind of like playing on the whole sense of the way the world is, people tend to have, like, ulterior motives to being kind. And it's kind of like showing, like, the outside looking in thing here. The girls, been dealing, like, with a lot of crap and all that. Kind of understandable the reason why they're having distrust and everything. So the reason how I kind of like wrote this book was like I said before, I think was trying to do this in a way where, okay, it's pretty obvious to see that, the guys are, the heroes here and everything. But it's also, it's pretty much safe to say, even before this, it was made obvious that they were the ones that had something to do with, the other night. I kind of like, set all this up to where people can read this. It's like, okay, yeah, well, it's obvious Kaiein and them were involved in this, whatever reason they had for it, which is the main mystery, why they, did that, why they were at the school and everything. But, the main thing it's kind of like showing here, that's the whole suspenseful thing, is how the girls are reacting to it. It's basically like kind of doing this in a whole sense, like, okay, the reader knows that Kaiein and them are involved. It's showing two different perspectives, where Kaiein and them are saying things that obviously, puts the cat out of the bag, but it's still like showing the perspective of the girls where they're still unsure. And kind of like some things happen where at one point, like, it basically comes down to it that, like, okay, they basically, end up, like, kind of like trust, having like a little bit of trust, or where it's like one step forward, two steps back, and then something else happens where Fiona at first, she's being more trustworthy, she's trusting more, but then afterwards things like, go backwards when little thing kind of like, shows like, okay, this kind of like, worries me here. But it's also kind of says that it's not that Fiona's stupid, as it's been shown, she's pretty intelligent. It's just kind of in the sense that, I guess, I don't know what the word would be, that she's very inquisitive, like in the sense that the way her thoughts are, she's very smart. Her thoughts like race and everything. So it's like, everything is there for her to like kind of like, put two and two together and see like, okay, someone saved me their life. I should be grateful and all that. But at the same time, it's also, she's also pondering like all these different possibilities. It's safe to see that while Scarlet is wise, in like her own way, Fiona technically is like the smartest one in the group. Like, in regards to like just how intelligent she is naturally and everything. In regards to, like, how much she studies and all that. Scarlet's wise in regards to, like, things about her species, in regards to, like, fighting and all that. And so forth. While, Fiona is definitely, like, the egghead of the group. She's the, bookworm, so on and so forth. And I just, like, want to set up this whole dynamic where it's like, okay, you've seen it from the perspective of the guys. Like, okay, yeah, we're the ones that did this the other night. And they're trying to keep them, like, everything concealed the best they can. While the girls are like, okay, were these guys the ones that were involved? And even if they did save us, what's their game? If they, they were responsible for saving us, why don't they just come out and say it instead of like hiding everything? So there's obviously a lot of mysteries there. And of course, as it's probably, can be guessed or whatever, some, Hell's Prophets, this is like one chapter where like they weren't even really hardly mentioned or anything. Like, like slightly mentioned, but otherwise nothing else. So it's kind of overdue for something else to happen with them. So with that being said, guys, again, big cliffhanger here. A lot of stuff that, I kind of like, really shared right there. But one of the big things also I kind of like wanted to, I really had a lot of fun with putting in this was the part up here. Just kind of like showing it right. Yeah, the whole thing right, basically all this right here I did about the monster they encountered out in the Pacific Ocean. It's pretty obvious, safe to say exactly which monster it is. I basically hinted at here. I'm gonna kind of like, just show you guys like a picture of it in just a second. I mean, anyone who knows like literature and everything knows like what I probably was hinting at. Basically, as of people just going like just something that scared them so much that their hair turned white and everything. But just kind of like make it very apparent right here, confirming it. I know like some people like who have heard me talk about this have probably figured it out. I'm just gonna find a good picture of it here. Like I don't know exactly where I'd be able to go with this moving forward if I actually was to do anything with it. But once I find like a good picture, I actually trying to find what I like. Give me a sec, guys. I'm working with this here. There's one in particular I was gonna use to basically kind of like do the unveiling of the creature, and like regardless of if I actually ever do get this book finished and do anything with the actual fight between Kaiein and it, because the main thing would be like how would it go down, like how would Kaiein be able to take this thing on? I can't find the picture I wanted to use. I wanted to use the share the unveiling. Like there was this one awesome one I saw of it, at one point and everything, but I can't seem to find it anymore. I don't know if it's like it got taken down or what. But either way, we'll go with this one. Yeah, but cat out of the bag. Cthulhu exists in the Nightmare Country universe. Pretty sure those who kind of like I don't even know why I was trying to do all this like this dramatic build up to it, but yeah, it's something I just kind of thought of at one point. If I can't recall if it actually is like in the public domain, and admittedly I'm not the most insanely versed on Lovecraftian horror and everything. I definitely say it is influential considering the factor that cosmic horror it's definitely very been very influential to like a lot of horror we know today and everything. And plus Cthulhu is just awesome looking as hell. I wanted to like at least do something, even if it comes down to that maybe Kaiein never fights a Cthulhu, because what I do know about Cthulhu is, for one thing, he's basically a god. And another thing is the fact that I think technically in the mythos, Cthulhu is never actually, there's not actually really any way to beat it. I think there was like a thing where like a boat had hit it or whatever, but really it didn't really do any actual lasting damage to Cthulhu. So I've just told myself, I want to at least have like something, there's like this little hint in there that shows that in some form Cthulhu does exist in Nightmare Country, because the whole thing is like, okay, there's like all this other stuff that exists. We got creatures from different mythologies. We got golems, we got vampires, werewolves, demons. We got krakens, and even like some like monsters I made up. And I was like, I just want like do like a little bit of a kind of just like a little creepy Easter egg thing there, where Kaiein gets knocked into the water and he sees these massive, glowing eyes just staring at him. Like the water's like so dark and everything, so he really can't see anything up under there, even like with his enhanced, sight and everything. And then, you just see these massive eyes staring back at him, and it scares the absolute crap out of him. And then Lupe notices that whatever it was that was down there turned like some of Kaien's hair white. And it's Kaien's been shown as like being mostly fearless, where he is in the book now, but this was obviously was showing like him back then. But even still, it was a whole factor that as I wrote it, Kaiein, like it was shown that just Lupe hinting at that one time, it sends a shiver down Kaien's spine, just like him even thinking about it. So yeah, that's basically what I was kind of like talking about there. The whole thing with this creature up under the depths or whatever, it basically was that Kaiein had an actual encounter with Cthulhu. But it was just like a passing thing. I don't know if I ever actually would do anything with it, because first off, how the hell would I even actually do a fight between those two? Because again, it's like Cthulhu, technically I think it's mostly like unkillable. So it'd probably just be like a thing where if I ever actually did like get through the series and actually ended the book, or like did something with the series, I'd be like probably a thing where it would be like Kaiein, like the very last thing would be like, well, Kaiein would go back to the ocean or whatever, and be like, and it'll just basically be like him standing out looking over there, and then like Cthulhu would come from the depths, and it would just like end there, where Kaiein would just be like staring back at him, and it would be kind of like hinting that they would fight, but either way, it's just something I want to have a little fun with. For those who may have actually, checked out, Lovecraftian horror or whatever, like those who might figured it out, I was like, oh shit, he actually, put Cthulhu in this book. But again, it's just a passing thing right now. There's nothing else may actually come from it. I just want to kind of like do like a little thing to show that Cthulhu exists in that Nightmare Country universe, and Kaiein is like, it's basically like the one case that Kaiein and Lupe, so far never actually is completely went unresolved. Like obviously, thing with the Sin Revenants, that was a case that Kaiein and Lupe saw through, though it failed. They failed in the end because, basically the village got massacred, or the town got, massacred, but at least they still saw it through. While, this one, yeah, like, Kaiein noped out, like, and it's still completely unresolved, and it kind of like leaves a bad taste in Kaien's mouth knowing this thing is out there still like wreaking havoc. But there also is that possibility that, if Kaiein actually ever got strong enough where he might actually go back and try to fight it. Because Kaiein is insanely strong. I'd safe to say, since he's the hero of the story and it's kind of shown like, what he does here. Like I've kind of shown bits and pieces of what he does, but it hasn't actually shown really entirely like what Kaiein has done in a present sense in regards to fighting like an actual monster. It's shown that, he has held his own against like, supernatural creatures before, but let's just say Kaiein is a lot stronger than he seems. But that's also gonna be said about some of the other, like several of the other characters, because they haven't really been shown that much yet. And obviously Dusk is developing, in regards to her abilities, and as I've said previously, I think in the first chapter, Fiona is a very powerful witch, and you guys like don't actually know like exactly how strong she is either, and not just in her spells, but you'll see. So whatever the case, guys, this was really fun reading all this. The cliffhanger was like one thing I was really excited about, like putting in there, like sharing with you guys as well, because just having this whole thing where Scarlet comes back in and she's now got Crow held up by his neck. Who knows what's gonna happen to him? And just kind of like showing like a bit of like Kaiein and Lupe's backstory in regards to the level of trust they have for each other. The fact that even though they argue like brothers in a ways and just like pick at each other, they also have this very close bond. That's basically unbreakable. It's kind of like in a sense of, basically for me, even though it's not really anywhere near the same with them or whatever, but it's kind of like with me, like one of my favorite, rivalries in anime. I absolutely love One Piece, for those who don't know, and so even though I still need to get caught up more in the series, but I love how they, do the whole thing with Zoro and Sanji, and the fact that they are constantly bickering, picking at each other and everything, and to the where, you see like fandoms online saying, why do Zoro and Sanji hate each other? It's like, they don't hate each other. They base like, the Straw Hats are like family, and Zoro and Sanji are basically, it's practically sibling rivalry with them. They're always constantly just trying to fuck with each other. But at the end of the day, you mess with one, then you're messing with the other. They actually have shown concern for each other. They don't hate each other. It's just they constantly grate on each other just because their personalities clash. But they also have each other's backs at the end of the day. They do care about each other. It's just neither will ever really truly openly admit it. That's kind of how it is with Kaiein and Lupe. They make it known they care about each other, but they're always trying to one-up each other and, piss the other off. But they do, like, have, like, an insane amount of, like, respect and trust towards one another, and that they know that they, each other, like, each of them is going to, like, both of them is going to be there for the other. So that's just kind of like the thing with them. That's what I was trying to show here, and that they've been through a lot together. They fought together. They've come close to death together, and they fought like a massive, practically undefeatable, 80-foot tall skeleton for 3 days nonstop together. So yeah, that's kind of like what I was trying to show here, and it's going to show more of that dynamic between them in the upcoming chapters as well. As well as like, including like a lot of things in regards to like, Fiona and the bond that she has with Dusk. That's kind of like how it is. Kaiein and Lupe are pretty much the counterparts to Fiona and Dusk. It's just that Fiona and Dusk barely ever fight. They are always like so close, never arguing. They're just always, just so kind and compassionate towards each other. But Lupe and Kaiein, like, they definitely put like a lot of love and trust towards each other. But they also, like, God knows they actually get into a fight. They get into a fight with each other or whatever, like it's gonna, they'll beat the shit out of each other, but then afterwards they'll go out and just have pizza afterwards. But nonetheless, Hope you guys enjoyed this. This definitely was like one of my favorite chapters, I did in this book so far. But there's also like a lot more to come. The next chapter will be be Showdown, and as you guys might probably be able to figure, just the name is probably like a definitely a good hint of what's coming here. And then after that, we've got like 2 more chapters to go that I actually have ready, and then it's probably gonna be a break from these, so it's gonna be at least 3 more weeks of this. And then I'm going to be taking a break trying to, hopefully get, the next chapters up. Getting, something else for those available for you guys. But at the very least, just know that consistently there's going to be 3 more weeks of this. So, Showdown will be coming Wednesday. I'm going to at least go through there, try to see if there's a few things I might have to actually kind of, streamline or edit for it a little bit. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this reading of this. And for those interested, there should hopefully be a stream sometime later today for Lethal Company alongside Deceptus and whoever else may join. But yeah, until the next one, Rogues, much love. Thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with me for this, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching my stream. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to follow me and hit that notification bell. You can also find me on Instagram and join my Guilded server to hang out and join in on occasional movie nights, as well as check out my TikTok where I post comic requests for my live streams. If you're an aspiring streamer, my website contains a collection of over a dozen completely free text guides with advice to help you get started. Sections dedicated to proper networking, reports to channel panels, handling dead air, and many other topics. You can find a link to my website on my YouTube channel. See you guys next time.